Okay, good afternoon from Singapore, and a big hello to all our friends tuning in from all other parts of the world. Thank you, and welcome to today's session where we'll be talking about the rise of the robots. My name is Wei Min from SGInnovate, and for those who may know, SGInnovate is a government-backed big tech investor and company builder whose mission is to help entrepreneurial scientists build deep tech startups that are looking to solve big global problems. Our work also involves building a global community of leaders, thinkers, and doers to drive and scale up deep tech innovations in areas such as AI, healthcare, quantum tech, and autonomous technology across various industries. For today's webinar, we encourage for all attendees to share with us your thoughts on the topic or interact with our speakers by posting your questions in the Q&A tab located at the bottom panel of your screen. Otherwise, feel free to just say hi and do a quick shout out from where you are in the chat box below. Now, before we get into topic, do allow me to just conduct a very light-hearted activity. Now, I would like to engage the audience in a poll. I will be showing a set of 4 different pictures, and you tell me, when we mention the word robot, which image comes the first thing in your mind. Okay, so give me a while. Yeah, and I would like to launch the poll. Okay, can you all see my screen? The different pictures? Okay, so basically, right, choice A is basically like robots on TV that people like myself is so familiar with of growing up, and B is like very particular relevant to our topic title, that is literally the rise of robots, where humanity is at the risk of being taken over. C are service robots that does not look quite like conventional robot, and D are robots in humanoid and animal form where we can easily identify with. Okay, so let me just start sharing. And let's look at the results. Okay, so I think majority of us here is able to identify more clearly with humanoid and animal form robots. And least is like people like myself. When you talk about robots, I will be as a boy, I grew up watching a lot of Japanese animation, fantasy and stuff. So that's usually the first thing that came to my mind. But it's good to see that at least most of the people in the audience here are able to identify with robots that are commonly out there that is doing service related stuff, or even that is currently being engaged in our usual I 4.0 activities. Okay, so back to topic. It's really great to see how robots to relate to everyone here once again. And we now know that robots have in some influence in our lives, and everyone will have their own idea of what robot is. Now, a robot is generally defined as a machine, especially one programmable by a computer, which is capable of carrying out a complex series of actions automatically. So technically, be it a robot being used by warriors of justice to fight monsters, or very simple action of serving drinks to people, so long as they are being programmed to control and perform a series of actions, they are all considered as robots. So today, we are covering more into robotics in the whole Industry 4.0 application, and I shall not blabber on, and I think I should move on to introducing our guest speakers for today. While I would very much like to make the introductions, I think it is best for our speakers themselves to share more on their work and a short description to how robotics is being utilized in your field of work. So may I just first invite Ms. Selina Xia, Director at Center of Healthcare Assistive and Robotics Technology at Changi General Hospital to start off, please. Selina, please. You're muted, Selina.
I'm muted, yes. Yeah. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me today. Yes, my name is Selina. And besides being the director for CHART, which stands for the Center for Healthcare Assistive and Robotics Technology, also covering the Smart Systems Program Office at the Ministry of Health. That's because we are seeing more needs for robotics and automation coming into healthcare following Industry 4.0 and also a severe manpower shortage in healthcare. So, and the needs for the aging population. So it's a pleasure to be here today. look forward to more sharing later.
Thank you, Selina. So, may I now have Abhishek Gupta, founder and CEO of Movell. Abhishek, please.
Hi, thank you for having us here. I'm the founder of Movell AI. We are working with different robotic companies to make sure the robot solution is go-to-market ready, which means as an end user or a corporate or any end user can use the robots very easily, and it can be deployed to them within 1 or 2 days. So we are working on the software for navigation and the deployment with the robotic companies.
Thank you, Abhishek. We also have Eric Fan, RoboSense, Director of Business Development of Suteng Innovation Technology. Eric, please.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Eric. Our company was doing the LiDAR sensors, which means the light detection and ranging, used to help the robots to enhance their abilities for perception of the environment. So our roles in the whole industry is to help the robotics companies to extend their abilities of their robots to the different field. So today, I'd like to hearing more sharings from the other friends and customers from the industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. And of course, last but not least, Ivan Khoo, CEO of 6AGT MedTech. Ivan, please.
Hi, my name is Ivan. I'm the CEO of 6AGT MedTech. So we started off as providing robotic solutions in healthcare environments itself. As of now, what we mainly do now is that we're providing modules of robotics components that you are able to easily reconfigure into a specific applications needs for robotics solutions itself. So we try to promote reusable components of robotics systems itself, the drive, the control, and stuff like that. And we work with people like Abhishek and others to also integrate their software on top of our hardware-based systems. So we were hoping that we can take our experience in applying healthcare solutions and then take up the components that we can help other industry to apply robotics itself. Yeah, with our reusable components. Yep.
Thank you, Ivan. And I think somehow Selina is facing problems with her connection. I think she just dropped off. But I think it's all right. While waiting for her to get back, perhaps let's continue setting the ground. It's great to see that we have people coming in from the sensors, on the software, and also on the actual development of the robotic side of things. And I think traditionally, I think we all agree that it is very commonly to associate robots together with manufacturing line. You can only see large robots building cars, building products, but very often the first idea, the first notion is not being applied to other areas, especially in healthcare, saying in the service line. Okay, so I think it is very great to have Ivan and Selina to share more later. But I think I want to pose this question to everyone here, is that, as mentioned just now on manufacturing, robotics is linked to automation for efficiency purposes. So I believe everyone here can definitely agree that robotics is definitely more than just that. So maybe I just have everyone to share more with actual use cases so that our audience can better relate to, how are robots simply more than just an automation tool, be it from whether or not they can increase efficiency level, ensuring repeatability in the works, ensuring safety, improve control measures and such. So I'll just go by alphabetical order. So maybe I'll start with Abhishek and just share some of your thoughts. And for the rest of the speakers, any ideas that you would like to tap on this on this particular question, feel free to pile on. Okay, Abhishek, would you like to start off?
Sure. Thanks, Raymond. So in our view, I think robotics is not just there to help out people, but it's kind of becomes a necessity. Like we all know that the world is undergoing through a pandemic, and there are a lot of applications where the robots could be used. So for example, where a doctor cannot visit the patient or more regularly because there are so many people out there, they can deploy those robots to go and deliver those medicines or deliver the food to the patient, and the patient can do that. Similarly, we can have those cleaning people, because we don't want to have those people being exposed to the virus or the public where the thing is the virus is highly spread, but we still want the things to get clean or the areas to get clean, and then we can have those cleaning robots. So in our view, it's not just that the robots are there to assist humans, but they are also there to do those tasks where humans are not able to do that. And I think this pandemic has been a prime example of how robots could be useful.
Thank you, Abhishek. Eric, would you like to pile on to share some of your thoughts?
Sure. Because we are the sensor manufacturers, and the LiDAR as a whole new sensors to the whole industry, like within a few years recently. So our goals and our works and efforts are to enhance the perception abilities for the robots, because enable for the robots to achieve higher level autonomies, the first things they have to do, they have to be able to get more abilities to get the perceptions of the environment. So that's our works to do. So for me, it's like more than the whatever the robots in the different applications, that the basic things that they have is to they have to have the more abilities for sensing the world, because they must to be able to see the world, understand what they have actually seen. So that's the work we are doing, and hope these abilities will help the industry to going forward. Thank you.
Yeah, I can totally agree to that. Because I mean, for robots to unlike robots being in like a manufacturing thing, it's really everything is programmed. It just run. I think the important thing about sensors is really being able to take in new information and then react accordingly. And how are they going to react accordingly? So maybe we'll get back a little bit on that with you, Eric. So I think we just continue first with Ivan. Would you like to share a little bit more?
Yeah, like from my experience is, I mean, also thanks to Chat, we have successfully installed about more than 1,000 units of this robotic bed staff. So the idea of the robotic bed staff is that it is not just a motor that moves the bed. It's actually trying to have the sensors feedback on the robots that fit under the bed itself to improve the maneuverability of the heavy patient beds itself, that actually increase the safety of the transportation of the patients, and also actually prevent this health hazard of the porters as pushing the very heavy bed about 200-300 kg itself. As what Selena has mentioned, also because of the OH industry situations, we don't have really a lot of workers also. So with this robotic space that we have deployed, it actually helped kind of extend the work life of the porters themselves, and also improve the safety of the patients and the user itself. So it's not just automatic, but it's actually like what the sensors have is to feedback the situations and then control the systems to react according to the environment to make sure that it's easy maneuver and safe usage itself. It's not just automations, assistive from there.
Yep. So that's definitely covered the safety aspects of the use of robotics, being applied to more and more areas. So since we're already on the topic, I mean on the part of assistive beds in hospitals, Selena, would you like to share a little bit more? You're muted again.
Sorry. Yes, we can't run away from the fact that robots do bring a lot of efficiency to our systems. But I think in healthcare, we can safely divide them into two areas. One known as productive longevity, which means that we also let robots do work so that humans can be productive for a longer period of time. Okay, so an example that Ivan just gave would be robotizing our beds and wheelchairs so that we don't actually increase physical stress on humans to push heavy assets around. That's one example. The other example we have is what we call healthy longevity. Healthy longevity is a very interesting topic that is up and coming in medicine now. It's because whilst we live longer, not many of the countries are clocking in longer years of life. Unfortunately, the last 8 to 10 years of our life is not in good health. So which means there is no point living longer if it is going to be ill health. Hence, there's a lot of interest in not just assistive technology, but how robots can help us in terms of healthy longevity. So one example for this, which we have tremendous results, not just in CGH, but also in other parts of the country, is the deployment of care robots for dementia patients. We were very surprised, for example, often dementia patients have very short-term memory loss, but not long-term memory loss. However, when they get an acute illness and they come to the hospital, they are frightened because there's an immediate change of surrounding, which they are not familiar with, and they cannot remember why they are in a different surrounding. Unlike us, who have short-term memory, we can remember that we are sick and therefore we are in hospital. So often they are admitted in the hospital in a state of high anxiety and agitation. And currently well, unfortunately, some other healthcare systems would do, not in Singapore, would tie the patients down or would, heavily sedate the patients while the doctors try to figure out what other acute medical illness the patient may have. But we are so delighted to see that actually robotic care has helped these patients to calm down. They actually do relate to these robotic appliances as if they were toys in their childhood. And that actually calmed them down and allow them to repeat questions. The robotic care devices are able to explain things, tirelessly, and they are able to also show pictures that help them to familiarize themselves. For example, pictures of their family, and so the care robotic therapies that we have now in our dementia ward, it's like the nurses cannot do away with them because the first few days of our patients is really very agitated. And these are new insights, which is my third point about robotics in healthcare. It's creating new insights. Eric mentioned quite nicely about the sensors, and Ivan quite mentioned about how we are deploying different technologies, but it allows us to create new insights with existing technologies in healthcare. And that's very exciting for us.
Yeah. So definitely, I think robots have a big role to play. As right as per what you mentioned right at the beginning, due to a shortage of manpower, that's where robotics come in, and it's exciting to really move robots out of the entire manufacturing scene. It can also move into service space, safety space, and we can expand to definitely much more other industries for new insights to be generated. But of course, from this end, more data has to be collected, and then the technology has to grow from there. So I think just building.
You are absolutely right. And this is actually something that we are thinking, how do we get robots that are efficiently building cars out into the environment of healthcare? And this is a scene taken from Star Wars, which I'm sure many are familiar with. And this is still a vision that we hold in our head that hopefully it should come in the next 10 to 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So just on the point of sensors, right? I would just like to pose a question back to Eric. So Eric, I understand that RoboSense has been dealing with a lot of sensor related work. You had a lot of awards, so on and so forth. So the technology for LiDAR has really been been around for a while now. What do you think will be the next possible breakthrough for sensors in robotics for it to continue to expand its capabilities across industries?
Okay, thank you. This is a very good question, because initially when the robots was operating, able to achieving the higher level autonomy, they use radars, using sonars. All these sensors are, the only purpose is to understanding the surrounding environment of the robots. So the robots are able to navigating or operating for their purposes. Initially, most widely used sensors like the cameras for the robots. But the robots are unlike humans. They won't be able to understand what exactly shown in the picture. You see the picture of the humans, but for us, we know that is a man standing in front of us. But for the robots, it's just the pixels. Doesn't mean nothing to them. So they don't know, but with the computer vision and deep learning technologies developments, the robots are gradually understand what are those pixels meaning. But one struggle is that the robots are able to understand the locations, actual locations and actual distances of the environment. So for the images, you only see the two-dimensional informations. So like for LiDARs, like I think this is a very new sensors that they are bringing to the full 3D dimensional informations to the robots. So the robots are able to get more informations of the environments. And that's why those robots are able to navigating by themselves. So back to your questions, what should be the breakthroughs or the trends for this LiDAR technologies in the futures? I think firstly, of course, is a cost, because everyone knows that LiDAR is not a cheap devices. So like we are also doing our works to try to reduce the cost of the LiDAR so they can be widely deployed in the many industries. And secondly, for me, it's like, I think it's a compact designs, because initially the LiDAR was, rotating LiDAR would be too big that mount on the top of the vehicle, so you can clearly see that. But that won't be the futures. The futures, the LiDAR has to be, compact designs can be integrated into the robots. So just functionally without everybody ever notice. And the second, the final trend, I think, should be a higher resolution, because initially LiDAR are only get very low resolutions of the environment. So like aren't able to provide more information for the computers to understand the environment. So we are also working from our side to increase the resolutions with our like solid state technologies to reach like image level resolutions. So like LiDAR can performance as much closer to the images. So that's probably should be the trend for the LiDAR technologies in the future.
Thanks, Eric. So of course, a lot of parts that you mentioned is on the hardware side of things. I mean, it's like from the sensors, taking the information, then translating it, and then there's also the software part. I think that hasn't been touched a lot. So I'll just like to shift the conversation over to Abhishek. Okay, so to share more on a software level. How can a company or a startup such as Movell could actually make robots more easily adopted and operated by people, and also better process, all this level of information coming in from new sensors or that maybe are not able to pick up certain pixels, like what Eric has mentioned, and then translate them into efficient information for backend to process and come up with amazing, new insights. How do you address these kind of problems?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. I think Eric rightly mentioned that there is a huge advancement going on in the sensor field. Although, to break down the software level, there are two levels to a software. So first is a software level where the sensor data is coming and being processed on the robot side, where the processing everything will be done on the robot. The second part of your question is how people can adopt to it, because as an end user, most of them do not know how to program a robot, but they still, if we have to have those robots into the market, how can we use them? So there is a need for them to control those robots. So it should be as easy as to control those robots. So that is where the focus of the software is currently going on. On the technical sides, where it is the platform level, there has been a huge development on the ROS side. So ROS is an open source system where a lot of different type of sensors, different type of robots could adopt to it, And the software should be built keeping ROS in mind, so that we have the data coming on the ROS from the sensors. The software should be taking the data from that, processing it, and doing some meaningful information. But coming on to the user interface side, where the user is the one who is interacting with these machines, that has to be quite modular and quite easy to use. Because if a person who is not tech savvy, for him, he just want to have a button being pressed on his mobile phone and the robot should do the task. That's how easy interface it should be developed for an end user. Because for the end user, the biggest challenge is, oh, what if this robot doesn't work? Do I need to call the technical team again? And if they have to come again and again, what is the thing? So from their end, they should be able to handle these issues by their own. And we are, as a company, Mowing AI, we are moving towards that, because we address both those issues. So just to give an example, the other question which was actually was being discussed this morning by one of the companies was that in a factory adopted robots from 5 different companies. And now these robots have their own proprietary software. And now if they're at a junction, they won't know how to communicate with each other. So that is where, as a warehouse also, they should be able to adopt to a common software where they can install on each of these 5 robots, and then a central system which can control among these 2. So all those things, I think there are a lot of progress being done. The biggest challenge over here is how we can make the people adopt to the software, and for that it has to be very easy for them to use. So it's as easy as I said, take out your mobile phone, press a button, and the robot should do the task.
So it's a lot of the usability, the entire experience, kind of feedback that you definitely need to get from end users in order to really make something that's programmable and just one push of a button and everything runs by itself. Yeah. So of course that's on the software side of things. Now let's merge them together and goes to Ivan. So Ivan, definitely you're on you are trying to bring everything together and then push it out as actual machines to be used, by end users and so on and so forth. So I have one question over here, is like, I think I have mentioned quite a number of times that traditionally most robots are used in manufacturing sector. So perhaps maybe would you want to just do a quick sharing, what got 6 AGT to decide to try bringing the whole usability aspects of robots, and bring it to the healthcare space?
Yeah, actually, I was actually quite lucky and blessed in the early 90s. I was involved, in the surgical robotics developments in Singapore, which we done the first live clinical trial on it itself. But those are surgical robots, very specific, used in operations itself. So that happens that I speak the healthcare language for many years there. And then I think somewhere in 2010-11, we see that all the robotic sensors and devices are getting more compact and cheaper and more friendly to use. So we see that the service robotic industry may come in more, because as what you mentioned, traditionally is factory automations and stuff like that, right? So because of these phone and sensors and things getting cheaper, then people can make robot outside factory usage itself. And also the advancement of the sensors, you make it safer for the robot to work in a less structured environment, meaning that it's able to work closer with a human. In the olden days, because of the sensor capabilities, very rigid and stuff, they have to work in a confined environment, right? So with the ability of going to close to human, then more and more type of automations or robots that can work in the field outside factory. So because of my works in healthcare, so from there I was chanced upon to face some pain problem or hospitals, in the early, I think 2010. It took us about 5 years to develop some of the stuff like the robotics beds, 5 years, and it took us 10 years to install the 1,000 units itself. So it was a long call, but honestly, that's how I got into healthcare, because of my surgical robotics research experience and get into that. But healthcare is a very difficult market. So service robot is also a very difficult market, because the needs, if we do surgical robots, it's very surgeon specific, and then the user are very specific and very well deep knowledge in that field that usage. But when you use service, you cover many different users, right? And then you have to train many different users, and all the different users have different expectations. Then you're very difficult to come to a workable or sustainable solutions itself. Yeah. Because of surgical robotics, I got into healthcare in that case.
Yeah, so that's the challenge, right? When you go on a new path, but however, exciting things just keeps popping up and it brings you to where you are today. So that's definitely one of the focus where we talk about, rise of the robots, is really to see how robots, from a very basic service tool, slowly, with the improvement in technology and the software, hardware, sensor space, eventually evolve into other areas. And then today we have both you and Selena on the panel. We can talk about healthcare, but also I think we all know that this area with improvements, definitely we will see more and more applications in other industry. So since you are still on the healthcare side, definitely Selena, not forgetting you, is that CGH is definitely one of big, I would say, identifiable organizations in Singapore, as a hospital. So definitely when a large organization such as CGH, were to adopt robotics, that will actually be more in the limelight to really let people see, how robotics are actually constantly being upgraded and used for its various purpose. So I just like to ask, it's like, how would you share, how has the journey for CGH adoption in robotics for service so far? What has been done well and what has been the roadblocks? I'm sure, like what Ivan said, healthcare is not a very it's a tough environment to be in. So I would like to definitely hear more to share on your experience in the whole adoption of robotics in the healthcare space for CGH.
Sure. When we first started in this journey for adoption of robotics, right, we thought that the issue was the lack of innovative products or products that are able to meet the challenges of healthcare. So we spent quite a bit of time to curate challenges and to curate demands. Ivan knows this quite well, and also to sort of scour the world for partners who can develop these innovative end effectors for us. Then we start to hit the roadblocks. I think intuitively most people would think the roadblocks are in forms of funding, in terms of user acceptability, public acceptability. However, I can tell you it's none of the above. The real roadblocks came in three ways. The first being that infrastructure. Robots require infrastructure or the appropriate infrastructure to operate. Unlike IT, you can go down to any shop and buy yourself an a laptop or mobile or a tablet, whatever it is. You have a sufficient server, computing power, you can run things. I mean, but for the end effect, us or an organization, we just need to make sure the laptops work, right? But for robots, we realized to do so, we need to have sufficient space, sufficient floor loading. So the lifts need to talk to the robots. The doors need to talk to the robots. Robots cannot crash into the glass because the LiDAR can't tell glass. Then we realized that actually, if we don't upgrade our infrastructure, we are not going to get many robots into the... So we started off in CGH with like 4 robots. Now we have 50, right across different spectrums. But it requires a lot of commitment and dedication to actually upgrade your infrastructure in order to allow the other famous infrastructure that we need to put in is called network coverage. And you have so many blind spots in the building. So that's the first challenge that we hit. The second is, I think, very nicely put by Abhishek, that's interoperability. It's okay if you have one fleet or one type of robot. Once you have many different types and many different fleets, which we started to hit by the second or third fleet, we realized this is not going to be sustainable because it took so long to do the system integration. So Ivan was talking about 10 years. It took us forever to try to figure ways in which we can get different companies to come together. And hence, I'm number one, I hope to say, champion together with people that Abhishek is talking about having the common universality of and to support interoperability, right? Common languages, common middleware, and even common charging mechanisms, so that we can then start to integrate robots rather than trying to fight all these other issues with regards to I've personally seen two types of robots meeting in the corridor and not letting way to each other whilst the patient is trying to go through. And that's a real situation. And why? Because both companies refuse to let us integrate their APIs into a common middleware. The third issue is one which is very, very real in healthcare, especially since the cyber attack in 2018, and that's cybersecurity. Unfortunately, sometimes in order for us to even implement something, it takes a really long time to go through regulatory, whether it's cybersecurity or otherwise, to get these products out into the deployment field. So these are the key ones that I actually hope, like Ivan said, it's taking a long time. We are, I think, in terms of getting user acceptance, getting the funding structure in place, even certain regulatory, especially HSA, we have actually got all these enablers in space, and now we're trying to figure out how to be able to go address the other challenges that I have spoken about.
Yep, thanks, Selena. So actually, I noticed one thing is that when you mentioned LiDAR can't detect glass, I noticed Eric actually smiled.
Now it's probably not. Actually, LiDAR, we are starting to use it to detect range of movement for patients, and it's going to be quite a useful tool. We're starting to use it in rehabilitation. So, yeah, well, glass was a 2015 problem.
Yeah, it's a reality. It's actually a reality because the LiDAR works based on the reflected laser beams. So that for the glasses, it's common challenges for the whole industry. So like maybe some other days that some new technologies will come in to solve these issues, but still now it still bugs us for now.
I know, right? So how could we change all the architects' work, where they have glass, ceiling glass to let natural light in, and we can't change all that. Yes. So those are the real challenges for deploying more robots, actually.
Yeah. So actually, since on this, actually, I just wanted, since the spotlight was on Eric, then, so that's earlier when we talk about next possible breakthrough. So I just want to ask, how do you think like other players in the ecosystem? I know that RoboSense has been working with quite a number of researchers, corporates as well. How do you think these different various players can actually come together to really push the innovation boundaries in the development of robotics?
This question actually reminds me of the early stage of our companies are actually funding. When we were funding our companies and making the LiDAR, because this was initialized from our founders, university research. And when we actually making the mass production LiDAR and promote to the market, so everybody was asking, what exactly is that LiDAR? What can be used? So we spent years time to actually making these customers understand, okay, these are the brand new sensors can give you actual informations for your robots or for your applications. So this is like a very long and struggle, but also very, you got to return more process for the whole process. So for me, it's like we have to, because we are only the components and sensor suppliers. So our development was highly based on the whole industry and whole ecosystems development. So initially we work with universities and the institute because only of these developments and like algorithms based on the LiDAR are developed and have breakthroughs that in the industry and applications, they will be able to, adopt those technologies into their applications. So we are very treasured our relationship with all the universities and, institute. But on the other hand, the ideas and of the marketing sensings are actually from the businesses. So like we have to combine the both, institute and the commercial cooperate together to making the mass production products promoting to the market. For example, like some universities actually doing some simultaneously localization and SLAM SLAM algorithms based on LiDAR. Initially was based on the cameras. With the technology has breakthroughs, but also have to the businessmen or the entrepreneurs have to find out the certain scenarios like last mile delivery or the smart logistics. They have to find out the scenarios so that we can combine the technologies and the business models together so the economies can, whole ecosystems can boost up. So from this year's, our customers, also our investors, the Alibaba groups are ready for launching thousands of delivery robots into the campus and the communities. I think that's based on our works and work with our partners in the whole systems. So we are able to get all these results coming to us for benefits for all of us in the whole ecosystems.
Yep. So I think the journey to reach there is definitely not an easy one. Definitely we really require a lot of effort and especially dedication from the different partners involved to really push it through. Yeah, Abhishek is nodding vigorously. Okay, not exactly. Okay. Now, so we definitely recognize the need for the different partners to really the kind of level of dedication to come together to push things through. So maybe Abhishek, I would like to have you to answer this. I think for corporate adoption, say, for robotics, sometimes it's very difficult for corporate to come in to say that, okay, I want to move on to automation or digitalization. I want to start using robots. Very often the conversation doesn't start like that. Very often the conversation start, I definitely would like to move out of the norm. I'd like to innovate on my current processes. What should I do? So could you maybe share a little bit more? It's like, how would you approach, these companies, these corporates to kickstart, the journey for robotics, be it on the software side and then slowly moving on to greater things?
Sure. So when we talk about corporates, as I said, like robotics can be huge in any different segments. So when we approach a service sector, it's a different ball game together because there are different aspects to it. But when we go into a corporate and they want to adopt the robots, the first thing they notice is that what is the cost of this robot? That's the first question. And how much productivity will they increase? Is there any numbers to verify that? Third is that they'll ask like, okay, if I am using these robots and probably if I need more manpower and I'm facing those manpower crunch, can that be addressed through use of robotics? If that is the thing, then yes, if all these three boxes are ticked, then only a corporate will be more interested in. That's one aspect of how to get the corporates interested in the robots. The second question is, what are the applications which the robots can do? So suppose if you're talking about in warehouse, it might be, oh, can it only do those moving parts? Can it also talk to the people? So they have a lot of different applications depending on what use case they have. So they select the robot based on the application. Then the third layer comes is the ease of use of the robots. Okay, I have the robots, but how do I use it? Can I use it in this application? Can I use it in, can my worker use it? And then layer of different level of security, because only few persons should be able to control the whole robot, and only few people will be able to give the task. Can only monitor the task. So they have a different layer of securities of accessing the robots as well, and that is where a corporate will ask. Then the fifth part where we go into is how much downtime I would need if I have to shut down and change from my current operation to a robotics or an automation one. So if the downtime is high, they will not do that. So how can I quickly deploy my solution or the robotic solution into the one? And that is where the biggest challenges for the robotic companies are coming. And I think this is assuming there is only one type of robotic companies. If they're trying to get 2 or 3 different type of robotic companies, then what Selena, I think, clearly mentioned, the problem of 2 robots not able to talk to each other will come as well. So this is where I think the corporate are facing issues, and we feel that this all can be handled through software from our side. Of course, we need to closely work with the robotic companies and sensor manufacturers as well, because if we have to achieve that, it's not just one company who can do that. It has to have an ecosystem to come together and do it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the reason why I asked that is because that I keep referring to instances where we can how robots will eventually move on into other industries, so that corporates of other industries where robotics are not a norm, where you don't really see them, can eventually adopt them and then move on to exploring great new functions, features, insights, just like what Selena has shared earlier. So maybe Ivan, as a startup in the space, just now you shared because of surgical robotics, you got into the space. So just a very quick question is that apart from healthcare now, have you tried looking into other sectors that is not very heavy on robotics, that has a greater value in bringing into apart from healthcare?
Yeah, I think one thing I must say is that service robots is still in a very nascent market development situations. Okay, you don't really see big sustainable deployments. Probably these few years you probably hear cleaning robots, right? Our local guys make some cleaning robots and stuff like that they have 100 units, 200 units. I mean, as a business, we need sustainability and volume, right? If you do 1-2 unit POC and POV and all those, you cannot sustain all that, right? So in service robot, you hear cleaning robots. Actually, cleaning robot like iRobot, all those in your home, many has been running for many years. And now this cleaning robot that you hear about is actually a commercial size, slightly bigger size, but the service is a very repeatable, very fixed kind of situations. Okay, so this one more successful kind of cleaning robot. The other type that you may see is that maybe the grass cutter, the mowing robots itself. In Europe and US, maybe very popular. In Singapore, you see 1 or 2 being tried in some of the parks, but those are actually for small garden, not in the big park. So what I'm trying to say is that all the service robot markets are very nascent. There's no one really that's growing. So people like me, what I have to do now is that I'm trying to take the common part of the robots technology and looking at which verticals may have opportunity that we can try on and may grow and uptake. And this uptake of this robot, to be very honest, is not just, it's a whole ecosystem, it's a whole social issues itself, whether that whole sector will start using robot and become common or not, and what Abhishek has mentioned is also like cost and the adoptions, the downtime and whatnot. At the end of the day, it's still about the business guy thinking about whether cost makes sense or not, even to start it off, right? So I see that there is a lot of opportunity. The future is definitely a certain level of robots itself, but may not be totally or fully autonomous. It'll be different level of intelligence. It could be some assistive, some automatic, some full autonomous, right? So I think it's coming, but the people need to try and test and gain experience and increase the features bit by bit. So what I'm trying to do now is to get certain common technology that can be reused in the various verticals and create a platform, work with people like Abhishek with software and create that needs and try it out bit by bit, and hopefully that it will scale as it grow with the deployment and experience. So I say that everywhere is growing, but no one deployable, right? But the opportunity is there, but you have to sustain this itself, right? While it's reaching there, yeah. So it's all over the place.
which basically ties back to our title, right? Rise of the Robots. So it's really like looking at a potential future where robots are just utilized everywhere, be it commercially or recreationally. So just on that, on if you will go back into the actual use and experience of coming to be in contact with robots and such. So maybe I'll have the last question to Selena, is that I think just earlier you said that for dementia patients, the results with robots has been exceptionally well. However, what about in other areas, in the hospitals? How do you think the reception to other service robots apart from the ones that you have shared with dementia patients? Do you think how do you think people actually is reacting to them? And do you think other hospitals will eventually be adopting this kind of widespread use of robots as well?
Yeah, maybe I will start from the back. We firmly believe that many of the hospitals, not just in public sector, but definitely also in private sector, has started hugely interested in the adoption of robotics. As we mentioned earlier, firstly, manpower crunch, aging population, and then now COVID. So really the impetus is there, definitely. I just thought maybe I want to share a little bit about the use of robots in many areas. So it's quite common to see, I think the lowest hanging fruit for us would be in logistics, cleaning and surveillance, right? Because these are quite matured in other service areas, and to bring them into healthcare, it's quite, I say low hanging fruit for that. But then, we are also now starting to, as I mentioned, right, care robots, medical robots, rehabilitation robots, assistive robots. So the field is getting large, and we're also starting to look at robots for training, simulated training. So that is really getting, the use cases and definitely applications are there. So I think our work plan for at least for us in the next 5 years, right? Well, it's titled Many Personal Robots. What does that mean? Personal to healthcare workers, so that we can supplement the workforce with robotics, and personal to our patients, so that we can assist their care with robotics. So the work plan is called Many Personal Robots. And to do so, we probably have to do it in multi fronts. Firstly, health and the social services sector will have to come together so that we have, as many have alluded to, we need economies of scale. Ivan says you do one robot or two robots, you probably break the company's back. It's not going to work. But thousands, then there's economies of scale. Secondly, there are many common problems among service industries. For example, the airport services, the malls, the retail malls, the hospitals, we all share similar, say, surveillance issues, similar infection control issues. At first, the airport probably didn't think so, but now after the T3 incident, they would realize that they probably do have the same infection control challenges or standards that they need to adhere to, similar to a hospital, right? Because any passenger could come in, suspect COVID. And similarly, we can open up these test beds if everyone is willing to share. So it's the adoption of robots in our society has been fascinating. I think Singapore as a whole is never adverse to technology, so it's been quite of exciting journey so far. But to go further, we definitely need to work arm in arm. That means the companies have to come together to agree in universality, so that we can benefit the greater deployment good, so to speak. The different sectors, whether it's healthcare or social or community, needs to come together so that we have bigger buying power. And then lastly, the different sectors, whether it's airport or retail or JTC or healthcare, need to agree on our common challenges so that we have economies of scale and also larger test beds. These are important for us to go forward so that we can do more for the community and also for the ecosystem.
Thanks, Selena. Okay, so I'm a little bit mindful of the time. We are about left with 5 minutes. Perhaps I'll just use a very quick run through of the list of questions that the audience has shared with us. And I think Selena and Ivan has really helped to answer some. Okay, so I would just like like to have a quick firing session, you know, just have a very quick thoughts shared by everyone over here, along with what you think and what are the end message that you would like our audience to bring home with. So perhaps we have a question here by Kunming, which says that, you know, software tech is at a stage where robot learnings is actually can feed back to a larger learning model, such as the information is being sent to the cloud and then in turn being updated through the entire fleet. So, you know, it says that oops. Wait, sorry, the message. Okay, so it says that basically a shared model in each robot is contributing to localized environmental learning, or a learning still localized within each robot. So basically, what do you think about this? You know, are most robots being deployed now is still in a very localized stage, or is it something that is being programmed on a cloud level where the updates, the programming, everything is very much automated on a back-end level? So perhaps I think this is most relevant to Abhishek. So maybe you want to start first?
Sure. Yeah. So this question, I think, is a very good question. So the learning is happening among the robots. So suppose if you're using a robot in a mall and then you want to bring more robots into the same mall, that is the where we are talking about the local learning. So if the robot has already done a map, the other robots will learn from the same map. When you're talking about the actual overall learning, the things which we can learn from this is how a human is moving, how the detection of a human will be at a different angle, how the lifts are operating. So from all those data points, we can do that. But the biggest challenge which we face over there is that a lot of people do not want, or the end users do not want the robot to be connected to internet because they are worried about the security. And they feel that the robot should be operated locally and it should be controlled in a local network rather than being connected to internet, because if it is accessible to internet, they are vulnerable for cyber attacks. And this is something which is a concern for end users. Even if we tell them that no, it is secure, they still feel that that it could be attacked by foreign objects. So this is where a lot of people don't want the system to be connected to the cloud. So the only way to do that is to go there, collect the data locally, and then process it offline, and then that can be shared across all different robots.
Thanks, Abhishek. So I'll just move on. Would you like to just share some parting thoughts with our audience over here on the whole topic of robotics and its adoption?
Sure. It's like because today's discussion is mainly most of the participants are discussing about the applications and the usages of the robots. For me, it's like my personal thinking is that like referring to what Abhishek used to say, that now it's like how to actually solve the end users problems is to boost the economies. In China, many over 2,000 robotics companies out there, but we cannot say everybody will live a better, very good conditions. So like some guys just making some moving parts and utilize some of the simple targets, and that is promoting to the market. But for the end users, sometimes we feel like the robots are dumb. And they're like the user interface is very doomed, and they're not interactive very well, and sometimes that they will hit for the children or something. So like from the ground base over, firstly we have to understand that where are the actual scenarios for actually deploying our robots. So for us, it's like we considering like some industry applications like AGV scenarios for the lift fork, autonomous lift fork. For that, if our technologies are able to help those traditional industries to transform into the automation, level. This is what we are actually doing. But for the rest of the efforts, actually depends highly on the those entrepreneurs who are working on the, like service robots. I know service robots are very appealing topics, but also a lot of competitions there. If you don't have technical obstacles then it'll be very, very hard to, to extend your market share to, in the markets.
Definitely. It's a tough market out there. All right. Ivan, so same thing. Any parting words to our audience out there who is looking to embrace the robotics as a new technology in their work?
Yeah, I guess if you want to deploy or embrace robotic technology, don't start thinking of the robots. Think from your business process, and then break down the business process in pieces, and then group them together, which part that can be done by robots. And don't just think full autonomous. I think is from power assistive to automations and then to autonomous itself. Because some job is not just full autonomous. It's not just you put a robot, it works, right? The robots must work within the operational process. So I'm looking for things that is sustainable, deployable, and not just, of course, you need to POC and POV it, right? But you need to deployable itself and sustain. And where sustain means that the user will use it and live with it, and it's part of the user normal activities itself, right? So think from the operational process and see where you can put a robot in and to use it. And don't think full autonomous. It's from power assistive to autonomous itself. Then you probably may get something working. Yeah, that's what I would think. Yeah.
Yep, definitely. There's always a step-by-step process. You can't, before you learn to walk, you want to fly, right?
Yeah, step by step, you should try it. Yeah.
All right. Last but not least, Selena.
Sure. I won't keep everyone out. It's between me and dinner now, apparently. So just wanted to say that in healthcare we have this problem where doctors treat patients by organ parts, right? If you have a heart disease, then you're a cardiologist. If you're treating a lungs, then you're a respiratory physician, and so on and so forth. And increasingly, we are now grouping up as multidisciplinary specialist teams because diseases are complex, right? So why am I bringing this analogy? I'm finding that eventually many of our technology and engineering specialties will have to come together. Whether you're dealing with AI or you're dealing with robot parts or you're doing hardware, or whatever it is, is the edge of all these coming together of the different innovations that will allow us to have our next breakthrough, I think. And just service robotics is one of the very challenging technologies because it requires every single science to work together. So that would be very exciting, I think, if SGInnovate or your partners can look at how we could get a multidisciplinary teams to come together to work rather than being very software centric or hardware centric or very engineering centric. Yep. So have fun.
I think that's something that SGInnovate is definitely working on. I mean, that's why we always call it, building an ecosystem, really bringing the different players together. And the whole idea about sharing of knowledge, open innovation is really to bring the different players to better leverage on one another's capabilities so that we can really push the boundaries towards the next frontier for be it for robotics or for other technologies. Okay, with that said, I think it's time to wrap up. Like what Selena mentioned, I shouldn't keep everyone from their dinner. Yeah, I'd like to represent SGInnovate to all the attendees who have stayed with us till now. Also, big thank you to our speakers, Selena, Abhishek, Ivan, and Eric, for all the great insights and discussion points shared in today's session. So once again, for the attendees, do keep a lookout for our post-event mail, which will contain a recording of this session, and do reach out to us at SGInnovate, events@sginnovate.com. If you'd like to connect with any of our speakers or simply just to have a chat with us for collaboration opportunities. Do also remember to give us your post-event feedback when you exit the webinar or through the post-event mail as well. So with that, this is Wei Min signing out from this webinar. I hope everyone will have a great day ahead. Have a good dinner, stay safe, definitely stay healthy, and hope to have everyone on our next webinar session again. Okay, goodbye.